us because our representatives are in parliament. What did he say? Agrobegu means the game will crash. One day. Well, my brothers and sisters, the FS will say, Bereka, elavanyo kokoko. Bereka, elavanyo kokoko. One day, we go better. Let's listen to the finance minister, Dr. Kisela Tufosi.
Beginning this year, we will formalize the export of Ghanaian labor to other countries. We will ensure a structured and beneficial system for Ghanaian workers seeking employment abroad and create safer legal pathway for them to work in foreign countries whilst protecting their rights and welfare. Mr. Speaker, this will also reduce illegal migration, prevent worker exploitation, and maximize the economic benefits of remittance and boost foreign exchange earners. Mr. Speaker, I now take you to how these resources will be allocated in the year 2025. Mr. Speaker, we will provide a cedi equivalent of $279 million as a revolving fund for the Ghana Gold Board to be able to purchase and export at least 3 tons of gold per week from small-scale miners. Gold Board. Purchase and export at least 3 tons of gold per week from small-scale miners. We inherited an economy in deep crisis. Mr. Speaker, an economy hard hit with debt and beset by other fiscal challenges, such as large accumulation of MDRS, energy sector, shortfalls, and financial sector payments. At the end of December 2024, total central government arrests amounted to 67.5 billion Ghana cedis, representing 5.2% of GDP. We remain committed to the pursuit of our 24-hour economic policy, at stimulating economic growth and job creation. Right Honourable Speaker, will be presenting the 24-hour economic policy to Parliament in due course.
So that was the finance minister, and these are just excerpts of what he said in Parliament, because yesterday there were varied reactions to what the finance minister had said. Some thought the budget was humane, it was the best, document read to us in many years. Some said, it was hollow, there was nothing in there. Typical majority-minority thing. We want to have a conversation with some experts about, this, but from your perspective, as a Ghanaian, what did the budget say to you?
For me, I think it was one of the simplest budgets, simplest quote-unquote, that we had. The language, I'm first looking at the language of the budget. Right. It wasn't above anybody's heads. It was something that the ordinary person who hasn't received that level of education could even understand. Right. But also the fact that the minister went ahead to talk about what had been promised, the removal of the e-levy, the betting tax, and all of that. That was something that a lot of people were expecting, and indeed they had that. The only thing that I got a bit surprised about was we didn't seem to have a lot of detail about the 24-hour economy, which is one of the trump cards of the governing NDC. And so the expectation, from our side, was that at least there would be an idea as regards what kind of structures, for instance, the government right now is putting in place. Yes, the budget needs approval from Parliament, of course, after debate and all of that, but at least to have an idea that a lot of people have argued that 24-hour economy cannot function on an economy that doesn't have industries or doesn't have a lot of work. So I was expecting that there will be a lot more detail in terms of what structures have been put in place. But overall, I thought that it was an not too much, extreme.
Bible verses and quite...
as for the Bible verses, is a style that Kenoforiata chose.
But yesterday I listened to the finance minister, and he said that, look, the 24-hour economy will be hinged on the Labour Law Act 651/2003. Yeah. And there is nothing like the 24-hour structure within the confines of the Labor Act 653.
Yeah.
So you need to look at that and also look at the GIPC law, okay, and then put in the necessary amendments, and then bring them to Parliament for approval, because it's only Parliament that can do
yesterday he called for a lot of amendments of even the Public Procurement Act and so many others.
Because most of the things that they are proposing will be hinged on those new additions or subtractions from the law. If you go ahead to impose a tax handle that is not grounded in law, somebody could sue you for it.
Certainly.
If I am, running a tabletop business, or if I'm running a small scale enterprise, or an SME or a medium SME, and I am playing by the GIPC books, and you decide that you're going to bring in a 24-hour economy that is going to jeopardize my business, I will take you on, because I'm looking at the investment, I'm looking at human capital, I'm looking at the time, I'm looking at my energy, resources, I'm looking at my creativity, I'm looking at all the mix I put in to make the work, profitable. And I'm looking at scaling up and expanding and getting more people and being profitable to pay you taxes. You can't just wake up one day and say because you had an ambition, ahead of political season, so hey, we go ahead with that.
But again, I heard you talk about experts. I mean, reactions have come from both experts and, of course, the minority in Parliament. But it amazed me yesterday that, after the budget presentation, we had some experts right here in the studio to give us their preliminary thoughts of it. Exactly. But beyond that, last night, I was also impressed on agenda that we had AGI president, the CEO, we had Guta president, and we had an economist, Professor Patrick Isumi. I'm sure you know him.
Right, I know Patrick.
All the three of them agreeing that it seemed the budget gave them something. For AGI, that's the association that involves individuals that have companies, and a lot of people have spoken about the working environment,
of the country,
the business environment that we have. So to have the AGI CEO admitting that this was a step in a positive direction, then it means that it gave them hope. Guta as well. You remember one of the things the finance minister said, and it was actually the beginning, almost like the preliminary comment he made before going into details, was that ahead of the budget presentation, he had gone to town. There had been surveys to find out really what was the major concern of Ghanaians, and the major one was the CD dollar depreciation. And so when he came into the details, he talked about the 24-hour economy, for instance, going to deal with the problem, also substituting import with production, and then he talked about other stuff. If you are looking at substituting production and with imports or import with production, it means that you're going to affect the work of Guta, because they are the ones who are importing.
But you see, when Guta makes that argument, and they are asking for tax cuts, I look at it. Look, once upon a time in this country, Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah set up so many state-owned enterprises that were producing stuff.
Textiles,
books, ceramics, and vehicles, and radio and TV sets, electronics, name it, sugar, everything. We're producing nearly everything. So our dependency on the world outside was very minimal, to say the least. And that was why he could go around talking tough, because he knew that, look, if you shut me down and you say you will not give me, I'm doing my stuff in here, my people will feed anyway, my people are happy, they're in support. But fast forward to this era and the era before that, at least the Fourth Republic, if you look at it from a wider view, Guta has always been asking for tax cuts. And then the question I asked is, are they asking for tax cuts to be able to import or to be able to produce?
And that was actually something...
Because the more you import, the more you enrich the country you are importing from.
Certainly.
And the more you help that country to create jobs, and the more you help that country to be stronger in terms of the economy, their foreign exchange.
Because you're importing with their currency.
Exactly. And then what it will mean is that you will now be tied to their apron strings. So going forward, Guta must have a plan to say that, look, yes, we want the tax cuts, but this is our alternative agenda. Everything that Guta imports into this country, has been produced in this country before.
But you see, that was where I was going, that I was amazed by their thoughts and stance yesterday, because we didn't seem to have the Gutta president having a challenge with that proposal from the finance minister that we are going to substitute imports with production. Because what he said was that, okay, if you're cutting these taxes, it means that more money into our pocket.
Yeah.
And ideally, what we would also want is to stop importing so that we have the necessary resources and the good environment for us to also go into industry. So that was really
for me, this has been told to us before, that we're moving from taxation to production. You remember that?
Which is why we had
and
a 1D,
said
1F.
we're moving away from the Gudgesbergen economy. Now, the understanding we got around the campaign time in 2016 was not to have existing factories, most of which are not of Ghanaian origin or ancestry, being given monies to, say, expand and employ more people, and then the expansion happens, but the employment doesn't come. You get the point. So they have benefited from the taxes of the people. They have expanded their operations.
Employ them.
They are producing, they are exporting to neighboring countries, and people are consuming whatever it is that they are producing here. But the benefit that the people were expecting to get in terms of the employment numbers was not what was served to them. In fact, at some point, some citizens called those factories paint mummy top, because we know a factory that existed already. You know, a factory like B5, you know, a factory like Zoomlion, you know, all those factories that were on the 1D, 1F, save a few, were factories that we already knew to be in existence. So that was not the concept. I would wish that this new finance minister and his economic management team would focus on the industrialization drive. And there are many things that we can produce in this country if we put our minds to it.
Indeed.
Look, rice has a gestation period of about 3 to 4 months. Same as maize, same as tomatoes.
I think tomatoes even shorter.
Yes. Now, if you look at your import list, rice, sugar, oil, chicken. They are your top 4.
Well, we also do onions and tomatoes, a lot of them.
We do, but if you look at, I'm talking about the top 4. These are your top 4. So, can you produce oil in this country, which will be owned by a Ghanaian business? Can you produce sugar in this country, which will be owned by a Ghanaian business? Because this morning, the cocoa I drank and the tea that somebody would drink, would be sipping on now, and the coffee, etc., the sugar that's in it doesn't come from here.
What happened to the sugar factory in the central region?
Commander Sugar Factory. But in Dr. Kwame Nkrumah's days, we had the sugar factory in that same part of town. So it tells you that if we actually are very focused, and I was talking about rice, we have 2 agric seasons, or planting seasons. So 3 months, we're done. If we properly irrigate, right, and we follow the examples of other, not necessarily build a huge dam, but we have those pipelines running under the cocoa, trees and all of that. We're making a lot of, irrigation. January to March, we can harvest. April to June, we can harvest. July to September, we can harvest. October to December, we can harvest. So you now have 2 more cycles adding on. Even if it takes away 500 metric tons of what the 1.5 and more that you are importing, calculate how much money that would be.
I mean, the ideas obviously are there, so it tells you that it's just the political will to ensure that we go through with these ideas. And I was having a conversation with someone about 3 days ago, and the person, that was exactly on Sunday, that's 3 days ago, the person was concerned about how much salt this country has along the coastal areas from the eastern region all the way through a lot of communities. And yet, we are not able to even produce as much as we are supposed to. And salt is so expensive, especially in Europe. I don't know of US, especially the rock salts that we have here that we buy so cheaply in our markets. I think 5 cedis you get like 3. You know how they've tied it and all of that. There's so much we can do. There's so many natural resources that we can harvest, give a lot of people jobs that we are not doing. So the idea is there, but how do we push it through with political will and the willingness on the part of everybody really to ensure that we are producing our own stuff, reducing import and making money?
Well, a breakdown of Ghana's top 10 imports in 2024, cereal grains worked out but not rolled out of late. So then you had 3.37 billion Ghana cedis. That's 1.3% of the total, breakdown of how much we imported into this country. Then you have diesel, automotive gas oil, AGO, that's what they call it, or for toll. That's 28.93 billion. That's 11.6% of the total. And then you talk about light oils, motor spirit, super. That's 24.12 billion. That's 9.6% of what it is. And then self-propelled bulldozers with 360 revolving superstructure. That's 6.20 billion. That's 2.5% of the total. You can go into clinker and talk about why cement is expensive. Spend 4.83 billion cedis. That's 1.9%. Then you used vehicles, second-hand vehicles. That's what they call them. 4.20 billion cedis. That's 1.7% of the total breakdown of the top 10. And then you're talking about petroleum oils and obtained from bitumen, minerals that are connected and related, crude. That's 3.34 billion. That's 1.3% of the total. Now, you look at all of this, and kerosene, jet fuel, we literally import everything.
Yeah.
And I was telling somebody the other time that, look at our Ghana Club 100, right? You can call them our blue chip companies, top earners. The first 10, I don't know if there's a Ghanaian company on it now, but the last time I checked, the first 10 had no Ghanaian company in your country.
Yeah.
So what it means is that the money is made here from your people, by your people, and the money is taken outside, is repatriated. We need to change the narrative. If not, we'll be beggars forever. And I thought that Ghana Beyond Aid was going to achieve that for us. Because if you look at the policy document and you read it, it was solid. Implementation was a problem.
It doesn't make sense that after 68 years of independence, you're still begging, you still need foreign aid to support your budget, a huge chunk of it. And sometimes the examples are giving of South Africa. You had independence before South Africa. Examples are giving of Rwanda, a country that has had genocide, that literally should have kept the country on its knees forever after that massive disaster, I would call it.
Right.
Examples are giving of Dubai, a complete desert country, and yet to look at what it has done, that country has done to an extent that now when it comes to traveling to touristic areas, especially on the lips of Ghanaians, Dubai is number one. Everybody wants to go to Dubai. Yeah. We have everything here.
Well, let's start speaking to the experts, and I would speak to Julius Jima and then Dr. Peter Tekpe. They both are well versed in this area. So we'll start with Dr. Peter Tekpe. Doc, good morning. Thank you very much for your time.
Good morning, and thank you very much too.
Did the finance minister yesterday answer the questions you had on your mind as of last week and the weeks before that?
To a large extent, yes. Yes, because the budget is actually supposed to be premised on what the government wants to do in the medium term, especially with what they campaign about. And if you look at it critically, unless somebody didn't read through the document, they have actually fulfilled what they said they would do. That is one thing. It is the implementation is also another thing. But for now, what they said they will do, they have indicated that indeed they are going to do, and they've made provisions for it. And so, yes, my expectation to a large extent was met. And again, the way the document was summarized, I think that it's a good document. Those who did the summary did a very good job.
Right.
It didn't take much hours to be able to finish it. So to a large extent, yes.
You look at our domestic debt exchange program and the payments over the last 4 years, you're looking at 150.3 billion, representing some 11.6% of the GDP in the domestic debt service obligation. You're looking at 73.3% due in 2027. That's 57.6 billion. And in 2028, you're looking at domestic debt obligations. February comes, July comes, and then there's the month that follows. The government has big ambitions, but with this burden hanging around their shoulders, are they able to do what they say they will do?
In fact, it's a real tough time ahead for this government, looking at what they said they want to do and what is at stake. But it's like a blessing in disguise. What it means is that you now have to look within, how to tighten your belt. In fact, government has to learn how to be tough on itself, how to be very disciplined on the fiscal space, especially on spending. And when they do that, look, they can achieve what they want to achieve. Because the challenge we have with government spending is slippages, wastage, procurement gaps, delay in making payment, whereby when people are signing contract with government, they double or they quadruple the cost, because he knows that if I have this contract with government is going to take me several years to pay. And so something that will cost like 1 million, he will price it 5 million to take care of inflation and then depreciation of the currency. If government decides that we will do what is within our means within a short period, or as we will only use what is available to do what we want to do, so that we don't have to go into too much and many projects that will not pay, and then interest will be accruing, which at the end of the day will be cost, like the road sector, for instance.
Right.
I can assure you that government will save a lot of money to do what we want. So fiscal discipline is the order of the day.
Now, in terms of fiscal discipline, the opposition, or if you like the minority, are already accusing the government of running or claiming to run a lean government, but then that is costing us more than what the supposed elephant government that the government of the day had at the time. It doesn't tally. And the question is, how does a lean government spend more than an elephant-sized government? It is a key question.
Well, to be able to actually appreciate what they are saying is for us to compare. Because you see, when you want to do analysis and you don't have data to compare, then you will be doing analysis based on conjecture or based on extrapolation. The reason is that if you are saying the lean government is costing us more, then you should tell us that during our time, we had this number of ministers. We have 88, we have 100 ministers. It costs us 1 billion. Today we have 60 ministers. It's costing us 1.5 billion. And this is the reason. Then we can better appreciate. But if no data is put out there, I will not be able to tell that indeed what you are saying is true. Because what I know is that, one, there has been reduction in ministries. Definitely there are savings. And we cannot say that, look, the government has been in power for how many months? After we say they have spent more than...
No, under 3 months, actually.
Exactly. So that can't be true. In fact, if you look at it from even that perspective, government is still appointing. So he's not even finished done yet. Board members are not even appointed yet. So in that case, how then do you say that they have spent? Unless those who put out the information did not put out exactly what they said. But if they are saying that government is spending more than what they have with their size, let's be objective. It can't be possible. It can't be. What is the data then? Or you have any data?
No, I do not have the data. Now let's look at the industrialization conversation. We've always been talking about how to industrialize, and we've been telling people that, well, let's get to it and let's stop the paper talk. Do you get a sense that this government is going to walk the talk of industrialization so that the dependency on importation is reduced to the barest minimum?
In fact, the president said that he wants to move away from the usual rhetoric and now focus on action-driven projects. So and then look at action-driven, implementation, and that is what we want. So the industrialization has become a term that we have been hearing from every government. Now it's time for us to actually put it into practice. Now, industrialization also must be domestic focused, because if you are industrializing and then it is dominated by foreigners, you are not helping the economy. That is the reason why your CD will continue to depreciate. So it is not, that's why you even have a gold board, but the CD will continue to depreciate, because you know what? Gold revenue alone cannot sustain the CD from depreciating. Because if you have industries that are dominated by foreigners, and then we don't have joint ventures, where at least part of the funds will stay, then there will continue to be capital flight. Now look at our sector. Every sector is dominated by foreigners. So even though you will be expanding, that's why when people are talking about GDP expansion or growth as a yardstick for determining the success of the economy, I don't agree to a large extent, because it's not about you growing, but how are you growing? That is the most important thing. So if you are growing based on foreign support and you are not growing based on domestic solutions, then of course you grow, and at the end of the day, the growth will subdue you because you are not benefiting from the growth. So industrialization is the way to go. But 4 years is not enough for us to industrialize, but we can start from somewhere, and it depends on how this government is going to let us know that indeed I meant what I said about industrialization. That's that each sector will intentionally create industries that are local based to benefit the economy.
At the end of 2024, government owed IPPs $173 billion. And if you want to industrialize beyond the raw materials and the human resource machinery, you also need power or energy to be able to industrialize. These IPPs who are owed so much, we owe ECDs 32 billion CDs, and the list is endless. You need to have a certain conversation that will induce the trust of these IPPs and the many others that are connected in the mix before you can take your industrialization proposal to them. Will this conversation be easy to have?
It depends on government priority areas. If you look at these IPPs, the question is that how can it be that government cannot also self-finance some of these things? We can go for soft loans and build our own power plant and compete with these IPPs. The reason is that we have Akosovo Dam, we have Vinyari. We cannot, the same plant, the Ameris that somebody has brought from somewhere. Government can also not partner an institution and go for loans and do this and extend the tenure so that power will be cheap. Because you see, when you want to industrialize and you don't have reliable and cheap source of power, you are still going to go to square one. Somebody is going to benefit. So industrialization is an intentional process. It's a policy rollout that cannot be done as a political policy that is being rolled out, but it must be done as a national policy that is being rolled out. And I think that it will take a selfless leader to be able to do that, where you don't look at what am I going to benefit. That is why if President Mahama does not succeed, then I bet you that it will be difficult for any government or president to succeed, because President Mahama is the one who has the best opportunity to change Ghana, because there is nothing that President Mahama should be lacking in terms of who he is and what he wants to do. And so he should really have the political will to say no to sometimes some of the foreign pressures. Because sometimes the reason why we are not able to do what we do is that when you invite or focus on foreign support, certain things that you can do, they will tell you it's not doable by your own. But you realize that when it is closed, for instance, today that Trump has closed, is stopping aid from coming. You see that we are now looking for how to get our own support. That is what it means. It means that there are things we can do on our own. But because we rely on the foreign support, they are investors. Investors want higher returns. So definitely he will tell you that this thing, I can do it. But I can bet you that if Ghana wants to build its own power plant, I will say we don't have engineers that can support to build power plant. Nkrumah started it. Look at the things Nkrumah was doing. We were producing our own cars. How come we stopped? It was Ghanaians are the ones supporting these international, these countries, these developed countries. Go and see. Most of the advanced countries, Ghanaians and Africans are the ones driving most of their major infrastructure development. So we can do it, but we need political will. And so once the government of the day says that I want to prioritize the national interest,
right,
then we can. Of course, you are coming from a political party, so you cannot take the political party out of the equation. However, once the nation or economy succeed, that political party will continue to enjoy the goodwill of the people, and that is what is very important.
Dr. Peter Tekpe, I thank you very much indeed for your time. We're grateful.
Thank you very much too for the opportunity.
And he's an economist joining us here on Sunrise on 3FM 92.7. It's 1 minute after 9. Kofi Asare is the chief servant at the Africa Education Watch, and he joins us now. Kofi, good morning. Thank you for your time.
Hi, good morning, Johnny. Good morning to your audience.
Now, Kofi, yesterday we heard about free SHS, the budgetary allocation. We heard about no academic fee policy. We heard about free textbooks. We heard about free feeding program. You can connect that to the teacher training allowances, the nurse training allowances. You can connect that to capitation grant, maybe the free parts for schoolgirls. Is that really are these the things we need to hold the education sector together and move forward as a country?
Well, policy sustainability is key in the sector. One of the challenges we face has been, truncated projects and interventions in policies some path. So we have now embraced the path of policy sustainability, where regardless of who is in power, the sector is implemented in accordance and consistent with the education sector strategic plan and the medium-term plan. It is within this that the allocations we have witnessed are very, very much on point to sustain the implementation of existing policies.
Now, you talk about implementation, and the minority is already asking questions about some of the things that were criticized by the then opposition who are now in government, and why they have not taken those things off the books, and they are still insisting, even though they promised a reset. Does the minority have a case?
In the sector, I'm not aware of any such lines. Can you give an example?
Well, so this morning, for example, somebody called in and says, well, if you are looking for a reset, then cancel free SHS. You complained about teacher training allowances, you complained about nursing training allowances. Take them off the books because you said they were not necessary. And those are the ones that come to mind. Do they have a case for saying that?
Well, within that context, they don't have a case. It's a context which some of us have cases. But within that context raised, they don't have a case. They don't have a case because the government in its manifesto indicated that they will continue to implement the three interventions you mentioned, the allowances, the free senior high school, etc. They, in their manifesto, said that they were going to continue implementing it. And based on that, Ghanaians voted for them. It is within that context that they don't have a case.
I see. Now, let's look at free textbooks. 564.6 million. Is that enough?
The last time we had allocation for textbook was 120 million or so in through that fund, or last year. We suffered funding inertia for textbooks in basic schools since the new curriculum was rolled out in 2019. And my team just returned from the field from 14 districts monitoring the implementation of the education sector medium-term development plan, 2022-2025. And we've been validating and we've been doing the data cleaning and analysis from 14 districts. There are districts in Ghana where they do not have a single textbook in a particular subject, the whole district. So, and this is 7 years after rolling out the new curriculum. That tells you how badly the 500 plus million is to provide textbooks for underserved schools. It is a critical deficit that requires fixing, and so it is very, very much needed.
School feeding program, 1.788 billion. But we have been seeing the food that the children have been eating over the last few years. And then also you have the political hands in the dark trying to shake hands with you, and you're not sure if it's monkey hand or human hand that's shaking hands with you in terms of caterers. And then you also have headmasters and headmistresses who want to get into the fray. Now, they're going to be giving these monies to do the school feeding program. How should we proceed?
Well, the school feeding program allocation is welcome. 30% increase, 2 cedis for food. An increase from the current 1.2, 1.5. There are two different versions of data available. But 2 cedis now. We were expecting 3 cedis in line with the free senior high school lunch budget. Right. But we didn't get that. We continue pushing. Maybe at mid-year, we hope that supplementary allocation will be made. But the school feeding issue goes beyond just increasing budget. We have to restructure the school feeding program, and we have demanded from government the decentralization of the program to the district assemblies and the central government and agencies providing regulatory and quality assurance support. That's how school feeding programs have survived in South America and in Africa. And that's how it will survive in Ghana. Centralized school feeding will not produce any results. The second is that we should decouple party politics from the management of the program. The program, as it stands, is a reward for party apparatives and event organizers and all that. And that is the extent to which you can reward a program if it becomes a political reward.
Right.
So we must approach the program as a community-led program, supported by central government financing, and then in the medium to long term, transition towards local government ownership and funding, with central government coming in to leverage and provide for local government with lower income generating capacities to ensure that there is equity. That's how you sustain peace. And so we're working with the government to ensure that these reforms are pursued. Some proposals have been made in the manifesto in relation to decentralizing the school feeding program. We hope to rise on the back of that, to build momentum and get the much needed reform that the management of the school feeding program requires. And so the increased budget of 30% is a good step, but it is an invitation for us to push through and pursue much more radical reforms in the management of the program.
Kofi, my final question to you is that you have been advocating that the GET Fund should not be capped. Now, it has been announced and given parliamentary approval that will not happen again in the future. Are you happy now?
Yes, we are happy that after 6 years of active campaigning and demonstrating and agitating and advocating the uncapping of GET Fund, we have finally found the pleasure of the government of Ghana to uncap the GET Fund. We are happy because it will free up to 49 billion cedis for education sector investment in the medium term between 2025 and 2028. We are happy because it comes at a time where the ever-widening infrastructure gap in basic education. About $3 billion is required to provide infrastructure requisites for attaining the SDG 4 by 2030 in basic education alone. And I'm talking about school buildings, I'm talking about digital infrastructure, talking about furniture alone. About $3 billion is required. And at the second level, also, government has indicated its willingness to end double tracks. All this requires significant investment in infrastructure to complete ongoing and abandoned projects. So it couldn't have come at any better time. It is a great intention amount.
Okay.
For us, the bigger picture is that after we are able to release that much, about 9 billion in year one,
right?
Which is this year. What happens? We must ensure that the uncapped amount is spent efficiently in a manner that is consistent with the real needs,
right?
Or the key priorities of the sector, so that we make good use of the additional revenues available for education investment.
Thank you, Kofi Asare of Africa Education Watch. We're grateful. It's 10 minutes after 9, and perhaps finally on the phone lines, Rabiu Al Hassan is the managing editor of Ghana Facts. Rabiu, thank you very much for speaking to us this morning.
Thank you very much for having me.
This conundrum about the betting tax. I took it, I didn't take it. You took it, we didn't take it. What do you know?
Wow. That's an interesting place to start from. What do we know? I would say specifically what the minister said in Parliament when presenting the 2025 budget. I quote, he said, "We will abolish the 10% withholding tax on winnings from lottery, otherwise known as the betting tax." Now, before the presentation of the budget, in the heat of the election, we heard of all the promises by the leading political parties, the NDC and the MPP, assuring Ghanaians that they were going to abolish the betting tax. We've heard from economists calling on even the government to put that on hold because it looks like it's become something a lot of the youth are hooked on. Others have insisted that because the NDC had promised that they were going to withdraw it, indeed they had to fulfill this promise. And so when the minister said it in Parliament, I think everybody was thinking about the promises that had been made.
Right.
Only for the former finance minister to come out to say what he said.
Right.
Now, when you look at data from the Ghana Revenue Authority, as of October 2023, we were told that the domestic tax revenue division of the GRA had generated some 15 million Ghana cedis from the bet tax within the first month of the tax implementation. Also, the MPP administration at the time in 2024 had said the government raked in 1.2 billion Ghana cedis in revenue from the betting tax. So it would be difficult for anybody who had heard this in the past to kind of make sense of what the former finance minister was saying. Again, yesterday we took it upon ourselves to send an email to one of the betting companies hoping to get some clarity on the 10% tax on winnings. And specifically, we sent the email to sportybet.com, trying to get clarity on the issue. And this is their response. And here is a quote. "The finance minister announced the 10% withholding tax removal in the 2025 budget. You will no longer be taxed for withdrawals once the budget is passed." End quote. So clearly from the email correspondence between ourselves, Ghana Fact, as an independent fact-checking organization in country, and with an operating betting company in the country called Sportybet Ghana, you will clearly from this know that indeed they were implementing the 10% withholding tax on winnings, and according to them, when the budget is approved, they will be removing it in lieu of what the finance minister has said on the floor of Parliament. So that's what we can report on this issue.
Let me ask you, were there any other statements of facts that the finance minister thought he had made that you think or you know were inaccurate? For example, about how well the economy grew, how much we owe, and what we don't owe. What do you have to say?
Sure. We verified, we did a live fact-checking of the budget presentation. And as and when the finance minister was speaking, we were as well sharing whatever findings we were getting on some of the key macroeconomic indicators that the figures he was mentioning on the floor of Parliament. Now, let me list some of the fact checks in themes that we worked on before I take it one by one and give the verdict that we arrived at as part of our investigation. We looked at claims relating to inflation, where he said inflation worsened between 2023 and 2024. We looked at overall GDP, the claim he made about overall GDP, that it grew by 5.7% in 2024 compared to 3.1% in 2023. We looked at issues relating to our gross international reserves increasing to $8.98. We looked at some issues relating to the cedi depreciation and what have you. Now, let me take it one by one. In relation to inflation, he said inflation worsened in the year 2024 from 23.2% in the year to 23.8% in 2024. When we look at the Consumer Price Index of the Ghana Statistical Service, we found the claim to be true. There was another claim he made about overall GDP growing by 5.7% in 2024 compared to 3.1% in 2023.
That's right.
Again, we looked at data from the Ghana Statistical Service. Their publication stated that overall gross domestic product grew, similar to the figures put out by the finance minister. One that was tricky, that we our verdict was a mix of both true and false claims being put out by the finance minister, was where he said that President Mahama has reduced the number of government ministries from 30 to 23. Now, when we debunked this claim or produced the fact check of this claim in the past, because when you look at the numbers, former President Nana Akufo-Addo, indeed, when he started his government, had more than 30 ministers. But subsequently, in his second term, he issued a statement where he reduced the number of ministries to 28 and not 30 ministries.
Right.
So with that, I think it is true that President Mahama has 30 ministries, but for 23 ministries, but for the former president, it was not 30, but it was 28.
Right.
It's close, but I think the politicians are people we should be holding in high regard when they make public commentary and must not in any way try to mislead the public when it comes to numbers. So I think these and more are some of the claims we verified and would encourage the public to go and see some of the verified live fact-checking we've done on GhanaFacts.com.
Rabiu Alassane, thank you for enjoying breakfast with us this morning. We're grateful.
Sure. Thank you very much, sir.
Great. That's Rabiu Alassane right there. And the whole thing is doing us lomo. Here are some reactions from the minority side. First, Patrick Boama, who's Member of Parliament for Kankwe Central. Listen to him. With us, the Gobe Eaters, the Gobe Nation Association. Please assemble. Get ready for Ghana's ultimate beans-based food festival this year on the 22nd of March at the Legon City Car Park Mall. Yeah. It's a Legon City Mall car park. We're on a mission to celebrate the life-saving, sumptuous Ghanaian dish of all time. Call it
Those
Gobe.
are fans.
Come and immerse yourself in an electrifying atmosphere filled with great food, refreshing drinks, live band music, fun games, vibrant paintings, jama sessions, and of course the almighty Gobe from your favorite vendors across the capital and beyond. It's obviously and absolutely free. You know how we do it here. 3FM Gobe Festival on the 22nd of March 2025 at the Legon City Car Parks Mall. Join us. Wear Ghana, eat Ghana, celebrate the love and unity that binds us. You should be an interested vendor and a sponsor. please call 053-1100-927 and 053-2200-927 and 053-1100-927 and 053-2200-927. Let's get Gobelicious on the 22nd of March 2025 and make history at this year's 3FM Gobe Festival. The 3FM Gobe Festival 2025, we're celebrating culture, love and unity through Gobe. Inspired by 3FM 92.7, your urban lifestyle radio. We hit the streets earlier. Yeah, some voices from the streets in reaction to the budget statement. Listen.
All right, so some reactions in there.
Let's go to the Parliament first of all before we go to the reactions.
Set up by statute, by Parliament, so he has to come back. And it's not going to be an easy ride for their uncapping. Yes, they have their numbers, but there will be a serious debate on some of this. For example, Get Fund is mainly for infrastructure. If you say you are going to fund free SHS from Get Fund, then it's misplaced because the funding for free SHS is from the goods and services budget of the ABFA, that's the annual budget funding. You understand? So when you do that, you seek to throw dust into the eyes of the people who don't even understand the budgeting process. You understand? So Get free SHS was funded from the annual budget funding program.
That's from the oil revenue.
ABFA, yes.
From the oil revenue. But then again, we saw that even with the funding from the ABFA, there were still challenges with the implementation of the free senior high school policy, which you concede. That is not in doubt. So if there's additional funding, is that not welcome news?
Then he needs to do the right thing. Increase the funding sources from the ABFA for free senior high school. Focus on, my brother, listen. Focus on using the free funds from the Get Fund to support the infrastructure programs of government and what government the MPP left, so that you didn't have projects dotted around the country.
The president told us last week, hadn't we done the retrostructure, that the economy was in coma. He said it.
Important thing in this budget is the women.
So those were some of the reactions. Elizabeth Ofusue-Jare, who's Minister for Agribusiness, and also Dr. Stephen Amoah, who's Member of Parliament for Nshaeso, and before that you heard Honorable Patrick Yaboama, who's Member of Parliament for Okankwe Central. Now let's hit the streets and listen to the voices on the streets.
I'm glad. It is a nice idea. You know, sometimes it's not easy. It's not easy to get winning like that. But if I'm not even asking that they should remove it at all, like if they can reduce it, the 10% is too much. But if they scrap it, it's fine. Yes, but if they reduce it, at least it will help.
For the 10% that they have taken away, I think we appreciate the government for doing that, and we pray that all of us should have luck in our bettings. So I don't have much to say than to say thank you and good luck to all the best takers.
Oh, better the tax no way if you are you to there because tax and you for so be on the now so say almost here and as you say on mine any problem. So what I say because on mine you might be on here no you to Juma. Na de cry then I be trying to so my credit because me madam for be trabet 85 million 500 million 5,000
I didn't be coach bet what's me the tax at also so we need ya utu every man but we did the automatic and tell what you going to this can so much timbo and you some this can be ball mine punk any problem but tell what you won't do this can at the pepper bomb this can at the ball mine into my year through the better master fast on my through.
It be good now, it be good, it be correct. The thing like if you come out at 10%, you know how everybody enjoy the thing. Imagine say you bet you take your money, you go bet, they don't get anything. Then after some time, then somebody will just come, you just win the 100 cities cry, they will still tear some 10% come out. It'll be nice. So,
voices from the streets right there. They're not excited. Let me ask a man who's well versed in the law when it comes to taxation. Lawyer Fred Kwashi Awute joining us now as a tax lawyer. Counsel, good morning. Thank you for your time.
Good morning. Good morning. I hope you're also doing very well.
We're fine. You heard the voices from the streets.
Sure.
You obviously are excited about this tax going away.
Definitely. they will be excited because of the measure of reducing the tax or actually eliminating them. There is this saying that even from Adams, nobody wants to pay tax.
Right.
So even when the Lord Jesus Christ was passing, and he was exempted from paying tax in one way or the other. So once government announced, government actually the one who imposed tax through Parliament, and so once Parliament says that, okay, we are removing these taxes from you, that means that your disposable income from your pocket will be minimized. The impact on it will be minimized in one way or the other. So yes, that people will be very excited. But you also have to look at, there are two ways that government generates income. Either through, in fact, three. Either through taxes, through grant, or through loans.
Right.
Now, your loans, collection and kind of things have reached so much saturated point that you may not want to get the loan. Even if you want to, the grant are now dwelling because of the recent the U.S. issues, and then also now, so you are less with taxes. So the question is that, you still have to fund your public expenditures. How do you fund it? It's through the taxes. So, or through rationalization of your expenditure, which I think the government have to look at. So you may be excited, but the question is that the public expenditure you want, will government be able to do good to those public expenditure, particularly by reduction of these taxes? Do you get it? There's these tax policy issues we know that when a person gets used to the taxes, you don't remove it. You don't remove it because introducing a new tax will bring some resistance in that case. So if somebody, like you get used to it and you're paying it already. So why then take it, remove it, unless it's so new to the extent that it becomes, it's having some negative impact on the general public and kind of things before you will remove it. So that's how they will tell you that little drop of water or taxes make a mighty ocean crossover. So yes, the reduction will cushion the general public, but that will have certain impact on the national coffers. The minister attempts to say that, we are trying to replace these taxes through capping of or the tax refund. I will look at it and say, no, the real issue is in the meat. Did you get it? Tax refund is more or less an expenditure on government budget. So if you're saying that tax refund account was 5% or 6%, and you're capping it to 4%, that will increase the tax by almost about 0.3%. Then in that case, what you're trying to say is that you are rationalizing the expenditure, not necessarily using it to replace the tax revenue. What you've done is that what the minister has purely done is to reduce the tax base, not to increase. And unfortunately, not much has been seen in the budget to increase the tax net, apart from talking about education. Do you want to say that you already know about tax, and you don't expect someone to come and tell you to go and pay your taxes? So you have some level of education. Possibly you may not know the technicalities as per the filing of returns kind of things. So government have to find a way to make it more simplified for you to pay the tax. That is all you need to do. But so if you say education, and government say that they are going to engage, use this quarterly dialogue to engage the taxpayer, that is good. But haven't you done similar things in the past? Ghana Revenue Authority have been on the street, in the market, educating the market women. So the question is enforcement of the law and implementation of the law, and also trying to gear up to the current tax issues, particularly taxation of digital economy. Nothing of that sort have been said in the budget, which I was so much shocked about.
You were shocked?
Yes, because look, when Facebook does business in Ghana, does Facebook pay tax in Ghana? No, it doesn't.
YouTube.
They don't. But they can't do the same in the UK. They can't do the same even in Nigeria currently. Why don't we look at that to expand the tax net through digitalization. And most countries have gone to that length.
Because you can actually monetize content on YouTube and Facebook.
Exactly.
And TikTok and all of that.
Those are the people who are outside the tax net. You have to bring them on within a tax net. Issues of illicit financial flow. Nothing of that sort have been said about that. Issues of what we call formal in informal sector. Or informal sector. Look, the big fishes are the ones who don't pay the taxes. So what policies do you put in place to get these people within the tax net? Do you get it? You have the high net worth persons. People displaying cars on the street, even having garage of expensive cars. So what policies are you trying to? You don't need to educate those kind of people. You just need enforcement in order to bring them on board. So yes, you have limited the taxes, but it's going to have an impact on you. The only thing, there should be some rationalization on that, but it's likely to come back.
The taxes will come back?
The emission tax will likely to come back.